This bill allows for the creation of a commission with the sole purpose of developing, designing, and reporting to the governor and the legislature its recommendation for the new design for the official Mississippi state flag not later than September 14, 2020. And that date is quick, and I'll get to more about that later on the dates as they fall. The commission will be charged basically with two guidelines in the creation of the new flag. It shall not include the design of the Confederate battle flag, but shall include the words, "In God We Trust." The commission to redesign the Mississippi state flag will consist of 9 members. Those 9 members will be appointed as follows. 3 will be appointed by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, 3 will be appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, and 3 members will be appointed by the Governor. And the Governor's 3 appointments shall include a representative from the Mississippi Economic Council, a representative from the Mississippi Arts Commission, and a representative from the Board of Trustees of the Mississippi Department of Archives and History. Those 9 appointments shall be made not later than July 15, 2020. They will choose a chair by majority vote from the members of the commission, and that commission will meet as soon as practical after the appointments are made. A majority vote of the members shall be required for the adoption of any reports or recommendation. Again, the only 2 stipulations to that committee is the new design shall not include the design of the Confederate battle flag and shall include the words, "In God We Trust." That commission will make a written recommendation for the new design for the official Mississippi state flag to the governor and the legislature not later than September 14, 2020. There will, in section 2 of the bill, starting on line 96, if you're following along, it sets forth a statewide special election for the purpose of determining whether the new design that the commission brings forward is to be adopted. And that will take place on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. The ballots that our voters see in November of this fall, there will be a space there and a ballot there that will include the new design of the flag, and voters will have the opportunity to vote yes or no on the issue, on that particular design. If a majority of the qualified electors voting on the question, in other words, of the people that actually vote on that issue on the ballot, that design must receive a majority. If that design receives a majority vote of the voters weighing in on it, then when the legislature comes into session in January of 2021, we would ratify that majority vote, and the flag would become the new state flag of the state of Mississippi. In other words, it's still got to have a statute once it is confirmed. If a majority of qualified electors voting that day vote no on the new design recommended by the commission, then the commission would go back to work, would come up with a new design, and would report those findings to this legislature during our spring legislative session in 2021. That design would then be on the next November of 2021 on a special election ballot for that purpose. There's lots of language at the ends of Section 2 and Section 3 and Section 4 that simply deal with instructions to the Secretary of State about how the ballot, how he obtains the ballots and puts those forward, and provides that we will provide him some funds to come up and have the ballot there and on time. He needs that ballot by September the 14th. He needs our design by September 14th so it can be on the ballot and available to folks voting in the fall general election. Section 5 of the bill is the section of the bill, and that starts on line 199. It is the section of the bill that repeals Code Section 3-3-16 of the Mississippi Code of 1972, which provides for the current design of the official flag of the state of Mississippi. And Section 5 states that said code section shall stand repealed upon the passage of this act. Section 6 provides for, upon the effective date of this act, in other words, if this bill passes both chambers and becomes law as it's written here before you now, and the governor signs it, it directs the Department of Archives and History to immediately develop a plan for the prompt, dignified, and respectful removal of the former official Mississippi state flag described in Section 3.3.16 of the Mississippi Code. And the removal of the flag shall take place not later than 15 days from the effective date of this act. And as Section 7 says, it shall take effect and be enforced from and after passage. Mr. Speaker, that is a brief explanation of the bill. I'd be glad to yield to any questions.
Questions. Gentleman from Smith, Mr. Tullis.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, it's my understanding that on the November ballot there will be one flag that the commission comes up with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If it doesn't receive a majority, then it will be on the ballot for the following November, which would be November 2021.
That's correct.
What if a majority is not received on that date?
It would keep kicking.
Okay.
Keep kicking back to the legislature.
Okay. So the voters will just have a choice of a vote for one flag. Is that correct?
That's correct. They have a yes or no vote on the design that's presented to them.
Does this bill give the voters an opportunity for a write-in vote as far as a flag?
It does not. The bill shows you exactly how the ballot will look.
Okay.
It's a yes or no question.
So what happens if we never get a majority of the voters to pick a flag?
Under this bill, we would never have a state flag.
Why don't we just, since what we did yesterday, why don't we just come up with the design and the legislature vote on the flag instead of putting it to the vote for the citizens?
Because lots of people, such as yourself, wanted the citizens to weigh in on it.
Yeah, we wanted to weigh in on the current flag.
I'm glad.
And a change.
I appreciate your position. That is not the position of this body here today that you're a part of.
Well, and I understand that.
Good.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative with you.
Me either.
Yes, you are.
Me either, but
yes,
you know where this is going.
Well, but my question is, and it has nothing, we're just giving the voters one flag to vote on, and it can continue for forever.
Yes.
Okay.
You understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Brown.
Gentleman, yield.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, did you perhaps consider a special election prior to waiting a whole year to do it again? The enthusiasm could die down. People could be discouraged for various reasons. Is there any consideration perhaps for a special election if it does not pass the first time?
Gentleman from Hines, that was considered, and I would submit to you that we will be in session in January. If the design that the commission puts forward does not receive a majority vote, the commission would come up with another design that they would bring forward to the legislature when we're in session next spring. We could at that time possibly act to move it to a sooner date. Yes, sir. But it's not in this bill, but we could certainly act accordingly.
Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Haney.
Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
This commission that's being appointed, they can set their own guidelines up. There's nothing in this, we can't pull it up. There's nothing. I guess my question, can they go out and get input from citizens so the citizens feel they'll be involved in giving them choices?
Yes, gentlemen. I'm sorry you can't pull it up.
Yeah.
It begins on line 67. The commission shall have the following functions and duties: to hold regular public meetings when and where it sees fit, to receive written public comment, to collect, examine, and consider all information determined to be helpful in making a recommendation for the design of the new flag, to consult with experts, representatives of organizations and associations, and others whose knowledge or expertise may assist the commission in making the decision. They may also make inquiries and conduct any business that may assist the commission in developing the new design of the flag, only with the two stipulations that we've put upon.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your question. I should have made that more clear in front of you.
All right. Gentleman from Harrison, Mr. Felcher. Gentleman from Prentice, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, you friendly
sir.
question. Friendly
Yes,
question.
sir.
Let's say we pass this piece of legislation, goes into effect, we have a flag with "In God We Trust" on it. Okay, at that point in time, is there any protective measures to keep "In God We Trust" on it? Someone coming back and trying to change the flag again. That's simply what I'm asking.
It could be that any flag that this legislature adopts by statute could certainly be repealed by statute by this legislative body in the same manner.
Lady from Jones, Ms. Scott.
I have an amendment at the proper time, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Gentleman from Itawamba, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will you yield?
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. What if a referendum petition comes forward for a new flag and it's voted in and it's in the Constitution? How will this conflict?
If it comes forward and it would be like any other referendum, it would depend on exactly what the referendum said, and it would control, just like any other. I'm assuming you mean in the form of a constitutional amendment to this state.
Right.
Yeah, the Constitution would control. You're correct.
Okay.